When a man speaks from the overflow of his heart, the world listens, not always in agreement but in revelation. And when those words stir nations and awaken conscience, we are called not to react with fury, but to respond with discernment. In moments like these, we must ask not, whose side is right, but what truth is God revealing? Truth is not afraid of exposure because truth, by its very nature, is eternal and unchanging. It does not shift with opinion polls, bend under pressure, or hide behind popularity. It stands firm, even when every voice around it tries to drown it out. In a world filled with spin and spectacle, the truth does not need to shout. It only needs to stand. When someone like Donald Trump makes statements that shake public opinion, especially concerning sensitive issues like Israel, we often see people rushing to interpret, defend, or condemn. But before we join the noise, we must remember, truth does not need to be defended like a fragile object. It needs only to be revealed. The exposure of truth can be uncomfortable. It can cut across our ideologies, confront our assumptions, and demand that we reevaluate what we've chosen to believe. But truth never wounds without purpose. It is not a weapon of harm. It is a light in darkness. When controversial words stir division, our task is not to react emotionally, but to seek clarity. We must ask, what is really being said? What is behind the headline? What motives are present? And what values are being revealed? Sometimes the truth comes from unlikely places. Sometimes it is buried beneath pride, ego, or confusion, but that doesn't make it less true. It means we must dig deeper. The truth survives scrutiny. It welcomes examination. And if what was said is not true, then exposure is what reveals the lie, and if it is true, then exposure confirms it. Either way, we win by seeking truth, not suppressing it. Truth also humbles us. It reminds us that we are not always right, that our favorite leaders, our most trusted voices, can speak wrongly, but even in that, truth does not condemn us. It invites us to grow. When something controversial is said, especially by a public figure, our job is not to rush to defend or destroy, but to reflect and ask, what is the truth here? What does this teach us about who we are and who we want to be? In spiritual terms, truth is not just a fact. It is a presence, it is sacred, it is divine, and the more we expose ourselves to it, the freer we become. Free from fear, from manipulation, from blindness. We cannot be afraid of what truth reveals, even if it exposes our weaknesses, our biases, or our brokenness, for it is only by seeing clearly that we can walk rightly. So when words are spoken that shock the world, let us not be quick to judge, but eager to seek the truth in them. Let us not hide from hard conversations, but press into them with grace. Because truth does not flinch under pressure, it does not run from controversy. Truth stands even when the world trembles, and those who stand with it stand on solid ground. Peace requires more than alliances because alliances, while useful, are often built on shifting foundations. Politics, convenience, or temporary interests. Real peace cannot be stitched together with signatures on paper or smiles in front of cameras. It must be rooted in the hearts of people, nurtured through mutual understanding, and sustained by justice and compassion. Alliances may prevent immediate conflict, but they do not heal wounds. They may hold nations together for a season, but they do not bind souls. Peace is not simply the absence of war. It is the presence of harmony, dignity, and truth. We see throughout history how alliances have come and gone. Nations once united in common cause later become enemies. Agreements once hailed as breakthroughs are torn apart when the winds change. This shows us that when peace depends solely on political ties or military strategy, it is fragile. It is peace on paper, not peace in practice. Real peace endures not because leaders agree, but because people live in respect, equity, and shared humanity. Without that deeper foundation, even the strongest alliance is a house built on sand. Consider the tensions surrounding Israel and its neighbors, a region where peace has been chased for generations. There have been treaties, accords, and diplomatic breakthroughs, and yet peace remains elusive. Why? Because the pain runs deeper than politics. the fears, the memories, the injustices. These live in the people, not just in policy. No alliance can erase the trauma of the past. No handshake can substitute for healing. Until we address the human heart, peace will always be temporary. True peace requires listening, really listening. It requires the courage to hear the cry of those who feel voiceless, to sit with their suffering, and to respond not with defensiveness, but with compassion. It requires that we not only make room for the other, but that we see the other as equally made in the image of God. That kind of peace cannot be dictated from a podium or enforced by armies. It must be lived one relationship at a time, one act of mercy at a time. It also requires justice, not revenge, but justice. The kind that lifts up the oppressed, rights what has been wronged, and gives people a sense that their lives matter. Without justice, peace is a performance, not a reality. People may stop fighting, but they do not stop hurting, and hurting people left unheard will one day cry out again. That's why peacemakers are not simply deal makers, they are bridge builders. They are those who are willing to do the hard work of truth, telling, reconciliation, and restoration. So yes, alliances can be helpful. They can open doors and hold tensions at bay. But if we want real peace, lasting, meaningful soul, deep peace, we must go further. We must lead with love. We must center human dignity, and we must remember that peace is not something we sign. It's something we live every day in every choice with every person we encounter. Our words reveal our heart because what we speak flows from the deepest places within us. Words are not just sounds or syllables. They are expressions of our inner condition, our values, beliefs, fears, and hopes. When someone speaks, they give us a glimpse into their soul. That is why we are told that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's not simply about vocabulary or rhetoric. It's about the character behind the conversation. In times of peace, our words may seem polished, gentle, even thoughtful. But in moments of stress, anger, or pride, the real state of our heart often rises to the surface. That's when the truth shows itself. When a public figure, like Donald Trump or anyone else, makes statements that shock or offend, the temptation is to immediately dissect the language, the politics, or the strategy. But the greater question is, what does this reveal about the heart behind the words? Words can build or break, heal or harm, unify or divide. They are powerful and they are never neutral. We may try to excuse them, reframe them, or dress them up, but the heart behind them remains. A bitter heart will eventually speak bitterness. A proud heart will speak arrogance. A fearful heart will speak in defense or attack. Likewise, a kind heart will speak life. A humble heart will admit fault. A compassionate heart will speak hope and healing even in difficult moments. This truth challenges us on a personal level. We must examine not just the words we hear from others, but the words we speak ourselves. What do our words say about us? Do they show patience, or do they reveal frustration? Do they reflect peace, or do they echo chaos? Every conversation is an opportunity for our heart to speak, and every word is a seed we plant in someone else's spirit. When leaders speak carelessly, the damage is not only political, it is moral. It signals what is allowed, what is tolerated, and what is celebrated. Words set a tone, they shape culture. They teach the next generation how to think, how to speak, how to treat others. That's why we must take words seriously, not as fleeting sound bites, but as sacred echoes of who we truly are. And yet, there is grace in this truth, because if our words reveal what's in our heart, then they can also be a mirror that shows us where we need growth, healing, and transformation. We are not condemned by a single sentence, but we are called to accountability. When we speak wrongly, we must repent. When we hurt others, we must make it right, because our words don't just shape others, they shape us. In the end, our words become our legacy. Long after we're gone, people may forget our titles or achievements, but they will remember how we made them feel, what we spoke into their lives. Let our words, then, be filled with truth, grace, and the light of a heart that seeks to love. We are called to be peacemakers, not peace breakers, because peace is not a passive state. It is an active pursuit. It doesn't happen by accident. It is created, nurtured, and guarded by people who are willing to step into the tension and sow harmony where there is conflict. Being a peacemaker means choosing the higher road when anger is easier, choosing understanding when judgment is more convenient, and choosing unity when division is more popular. Peacemakers are not people who avoid conflict. They are people who walk through it with grace. They do not pretend problems don't exist. They don't sweep injustice under the rug or call silence peace. Real peacemakers confront the brokenness in the world not with weapons or condemnation, but with compassion and courage. They speak truth, but they speak it in love. They listen before they argue. They build bridges instead of walls, and in doing so, they bring light into dark places. In a world as divided as ours, where political, racial, and religious tensions rise daily, it is tempting to join the noise, to pick a side, and to fight fire with fire. But we are not called to be peace breakers. We are not called to stir hatred, to provoke division, or to throw stones from behind the safety of our opinions. That's the easy path, but it's not the righteous one. Peace breakers operate from pride, fear, or a thirst for control. Their words are sharp, their posture defensive, and their motives self-centered. Whether on a national stage or in a quiet living room, peace breakers enter conversations like battlegrounds, seeking to win, not to understand. But peace is never won through conquest. It is won through humility. We must remember that peacemaking starts at home. It starts with how we treat our family, our neighbors, our coworkers, and even strangers. It is found in our tone of voice, in the words we choose, in how we handle disagreements. If we can't pursue peace in our own hearts and homes, how can we expect to influence the world around us? Even when we disagree deeply, we can still honor one another's humanity. That's what a peacemaker does. They look into the eyes of someone different and see not an enemy, but a fellow creation. They choose empathy over insult. They choose to believe that healing is possible even in the most divided places. Peacemakers also know the source of true peace. It doesn't come from treaties or policies alone. It comes from the divine. It is a gift we receive and a gift we are called to give. That calling is not optional. It is a sacred responsibility. So in a world full of peace breakers, may we be the ones who mend, not tear. May we be the ones who listen, who care, who build. Because real peace is not passive, it's powerful. And those who make peace carry the light of heaven into a hurting world. God is not on one side. He is on the side of justice. That truth shakes our assumptions, humbles our pride, and calls us to look beyond the borders we draw in our minds and the lines we carve in our politics. We often want to claim God for our cause, our people, our nation, as if his favor can be owned or his truth can be weaponized. But the heart of God is not bound to flags, tribes, or parties. His allegiance is to justice, mercy, righteousness, and truth, wherever they are found. Throughout history, people have tried to place God in their corner. Nations have marched into battle with his name on their banners. Leaders have claimed divine approval for their policies, and communities have justified harm in the name of holiness. But God is not a mascot for our agendas. He is not impressed by power, nor is he swayed by popularity. What moves the heart of God is the cry of the oppressed, the tears of the forgotten, and the silent suffering of the broken. Justice is not about favoritism, it's about fairness. It is not about choosing a side, it's about choosing what is right. When we look at complex issues like the conflict in the Middle East, it's tempting to pick one side and demonize the other. But the God of justice sees the pain on all sides. He sees the fear in hearts of Israeli families running to bomb shelters, and he sees the anguish in the eyes of Palestinian parents grieving their children. He doesn't ignore suffering because of nationality. He doesn't condone injustice because of history. His heart breaks wherever human dignity is crushed. This truth demands something from us. It calls us to examine not only what we stand for, but how we stand. Are we promoting justice or just defending our preferences? Are we advocating for the vulnerable or just protecting the powerful? Do we love righteousness enough to speak up even when it costs us? Something God does, he always has. He stood with the slaves in Egypt, the exiles in Babylon, the outcasts in society, and the voiceless in every age. He stands with truth, not with trends. Being on the side of justice doesn't mean we hate one group or ignore another. It means we love boldly and fairly. It means we speak for the voiceless, defend the weak, and challenge the systems that crush people. It means we seek truth, not convenience, compassion, not control. If we want to walk with God, we must walk where he walks, into the margins, into the mess, into the places where easy answers do not exist, but love still does. He doesn't ask us to pick a side based on loyalty or legacy. He asks us to stand with him, where justice rolls down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Because in the end, it's not about whose side God is on. It's about whether we are on his. Darkness cannot drown out the light of hope because hope is not a fragile flicker. It is a force. It is the quiet strength that rises when everything else falls. It is the whisper in the soul that says, keep going. Even when the night feels endless, hope is not blind to the pain of the world. It sees the darkness clearly, but refuses to let it have the final word, and that is why it cannot be drowned out. There are moments when the world feels heavy with despair, when headlines are filled with conflict, injustice, betrayal, and sorrow. We hear leaders speak words that divide rather than unite. We see innocent people caught in the crossfire of political games. We watch as truth gets twisted and love gets lost. And yet, in all of this, hope remains, not because things are easy, but because hope was made for the hard places. Hope is like light in a cave. It doesn't need to be loud or large to change everything. Just a spark can guide someone through the darkness. Just a word of kindness, a gesture of compassion, a choice to forgive, can become a torch that leads others out of fear. Darkness doesn't know what to do with hope because darkness thrives on despair, but hope says, there is more than this. It reminds us that healing is possible, that love is stronger, that change can come. This kind of hope isn't wishful thinking. It is rooted in something deeper, in faith, in purpose, in the belief that what we see is not all there is, that there is a greater story being written even when the current chapter feels filled with pain. It is the kind of hope that kept prophets speaking truth when no one wanted to hear it. It is the hope that kept freedom fighters standing when they were beaten down. It is the hope that carried survivors through the fires of war, hatred, and injustice, and it is the same hope we must carry today. When voices of division rise, let us be voices of unity. When fear threatens to consume, let us be messengers of peace. When despair sets in, let us become beacons of hope, not because we ignore the darkness, but because we know light always wins in the end. There is a reason the darkest hour comes just before dawn, because light never stops pushing forward. It never gives up, and neither should we. The world does not need more noise, more cynicism, more despair. It needs people who believe in the power of light, people who choose to hope even when it's hard, people who understand that while darkness may shout, hope never has to scream to be heard. So no matter how heavy the world feels today, remember this: darkness cannot drown out the light of hope. Not now, not ever, because the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not and will not overcome it.